This is CBN Newswatch.
I want to begin this half hour in Israel. The Israeli government has approved a partial hostage deal. As Chris Mitchell reports now from Jerusalem, the agreement brings opportunities, but it also brings danger.
The War Cabinet presented the agreement to Knesset members. It's a deal that will take place in 2 stages. In stage 1, Hamas will release 50 Israeli women and children over 4 days during a pause in the fighting. Israel will also release 150 Palestinian prisoners, also mostly women and minors. Israel will then allow around 300 aid trucks per day to enter Gaza from Egypt, plus more fuel. The ceasefire will last 4 days. In stage 2, the release of an additional 10 hostages will result in 1 additional day in the ceasefire. Some warn it will be hard to resume the war once it's stopped, but Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the fighting will go on. There is idle talk outside, as if after the truce to return our abductees, we will stop the war. So I would like to make it clear, we are at war, and we will continue the war. We will continue the war until we achieve all our objectives, eliminate Hamas, return all our abductees and missing persons, and ensure that there will be no element in Gaza that threatens Israel. CBN News war correspondent Chuck Holton, who has talked with Israelis as he's traveled throughout the country during the fighting, says the deal answers a global cry for freedom for those who are held captive.
You have the chance to get out, especially some of the women and children that are being held hostage. And there are so many people here in Israel and elsewhere around the world who are clamoring for that.
But he believes it also involves risk.
They have to weigh the fact that this is going to put more IDF soldiers at risk, because the longer you have troops in the field, the more risk that they take on. And it lends some legitimacy to Hamas, so that's not a good thing. It also takes the pressure off Hamas for a time, at least for several days, and lets them have time to rearm and refit and rest and plan what they're going to do next. And so ultimately it will probably draw out this conflict longer, which obviously is not a good thing.
In 2011, Israel released more than 1,000 Palestinian prisoners, including Yahya Sinwar, who is now head of Hamas in Gaza, for 1 Israeli soldier. On October 7th, Hamas kidnapped more than 240 hostages. Since then, their return has been part of a nationwide and global campaign to bring them home. The IDF released footage this week that showed some of the hostages were brought into the Al-Shifa hospital. While the return of 50 hostages will bring relief to dozens of Israeli families, the anguish of nearly 200 other families will go on.
And Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell joins us now with more. So, Chris, we've got a 4-day ceasefire. Will there be any discussions on ceasefires to release more hostages?
Well, that's part of the agreement, Ephraim. If there, say, 10 hostages released, that will add 1 day to the ceasefire. The concern for many, Ephraim, is that Hamas could actually keep dragging on this ceasefire, and to their advantage. And it would make it harder for Israel to restart the war. And it would actually, once a war is restarted, it might put Hamas in the sense that they're the humanitarian side and Israel is the aggressor. So it is part of the ceasefire agreement. It could happen. Israelis here are eager to have more and more of their hostages released, as well as many other nations that have their citizens in the hands of Hamas or Palestinian Islamic Jihad. So it's a very uncertain future for what's going to happen here in this particular agreement. Hamas might use this as an opportunity to continue the war and have it drag on.
Seeing hostages released, American hostages could be released, we're hearing. What can you tell us about this?
Well, we know that maybe 3 Americans are going to be part of this hostage deal. A 3-year-old, her name is Abigail, and apparently her birthday is on this coming Friday. So we also know that there are 10 Americans that are accounted for, still unaccounted for, likely hostages. And as I mentioned, there are many other nations that have their citizens, maybe 36 nations that are part of these 240 hostages. So Americans are going to be happy about this. But still, as I said at the end of this report, it's going to leave maybe 200 families still in the anguish of having their loved ones in the hands of Hamas or Islamic Jihad. Even there are some talks, there may be some groups, some clans that have some of these hostages. So whether or not they all get released is going to be, as many people pray, I'm praying for a miracle.
Indeed. These are some major developments, Chris. How do Israelis feel about this hostage release and what's happening now?
They have mixed feelings, Ephraim. On the one hand, they love to see their loved ones freed, however many can be released. But they also, as we noted in our report, and as Chuck Holton said, it puts IDF soldiers at risk, and it halts the momentum of this war, and it sort of takes Hamas off the hook right now. So they have mixed feelings. And I think, but there's a moral dilemma, an ethical dilemma that a lot of Israelis wrestle with. But having people freed out of the hands of Hamas really takes precedence right now over the other dangers.
Now, this 4-day ceasefire has the potential to extend beyond, as you said. What will the IDF do when the ceasefire starts and ends?
Well, they're going to be resting, they're going to be rearming, they're going to be planning for the next phase of the war, something Hamas is going to be doing as well. One of the provisos, Ephraim, is that actually for every 6 hours a day, there'll be no aerial surveillance. And when we talked to Chuck Holton, our war correspondent earlier, he said that was mind-boggling. Really, that allows Hamas for at least 6 hours to do what they can without eyes on the ground or eyes in the sky by the IDF. He did say possibly that Israel will be using satellite surveillance if they don't use the unmanned aerial reconnaissance and maybe be able to track Hamas right now. But it will be a welcome release in one sense. It's been a very hard slog for many of these soldiers, and they could probably use a rest. But as we said, it could put them at risk when the war begins again.
All right, Chris Mitchell, thank you so much. Some major developments. Thank you for following those for us. Back here at home, it is one of the busiest travel times of the year, especially at America's airports, where the Transportation Security Administration anticipates screening 2.7 million passengers. But the weather could hinder those plans as well. Mark Martin is on this story.
The Federal Aviation Administration predicts nearly 50,000 flights over the U.S. today, transporting millions of travelers to their Thanksgiving destinations.
Tuesday and Wednesday before Thanksgiving are very busy. The busiest day usually is the Sunday following. And so the Sunday following Thanksgiving this year, we expect about 3 million passengers going through our screening checkpoints. If so, that will be an all-time record.
So I like to come early, and the reason I like to come early is because it reduces my stress. And today was a busy Thanksgiving holiday season, and I felt there might be a couple million people coming through the airport over the next week. So that's why I'm here early.
The FAA wants to cut back on cancellations and delays by freeing up airspace typically reserved for the military. On the roads, AAA expects a record-breaking 55 million Americans will travel more than 50 miles to their Thanksgiving destinations. It's already been difficult for some drivers.
For 45 minutes we've been in traffic.
It was stopped. It was terrible. It took forever.
If you're hitting the roads, experts advise to hold off until the evening before or even Thanksgiving morning, with safety your top priority.
It is what it is. You know, as long as everybody can be safe, take their time, know you're going to get there, and don't do anything crazy.
And be aware, the weather could make your trip more challenging. A cross-country storm bringing heavy rain along the East Coast and an expected several inches of snow in parts of New England. In the South, 5 reported tornadoes. The storm soaking Mississippi and Louisiana with rain, hail, and high winds. On I-75 in Tennessee, crashes caused traffic to come to a standstill. On the positive side, when it comes to gas prices, drivers will get a break.
Gas prices are lower than this time last year, in many states significantly lower.
Some good news for the tens of millions hitting the highways for Thanksgiving travel this year. Mark Martin, CBN News.
Coming up, see the Israeli Archaeological Forensics' new mission since the October 7th massacre. Stay with us. You're watching CBN Newswatch. The Israel Antiquities Authority is known worldwide for excavating artifacts from biblical times, but the war brings a new mission. As CBN Middle East correspondent Julie Stahl shows us, archaeologists are now involved in recovery efforts from the October 7th massacre.
For the first time, the Israel Antiquities Authority is putting its expertise investigating ancient burn sites to help identify remains in Gaza border communities.
We are able to go into these houses and apply our archaeological methodology into a modern context, as difficult as that is emotionally, but be able to understand what happened in the building, to divide the building into different locations in order to specifically place different events, and to sift through the burnt remains in order to look for anything that can help us identify missing peoples, be it personal adornments, which may be specific to a certain individual that we know is missing, or human remains, primarily human bones, which were burned.
As head of the authority's Dead Sea Scrolls unit, Dr. Joe Uziel normally works in ancient biblical texts.
As we are familiar with this through our excavation contexts, which we deal with destructions from hundreds and thousands of years ago, we can apply them to the current situation and be able to identify remains of humans.
For more than 2 weeks, Uziel has joined 15 archaeologists combing and sifting ashes at the communities of Kibbutz Be'eri, Kfar Aza, and Nir Oz. They are also examining the contents of incinerated cars from the music festival at Kibbutz Re'im.
To date, dozens have been retrieved, including the identification of several individuals that were listed as missing, and we can now say with complete certainty that they were killed during this horrible massacre.
Remains are turned over to the rabbinical unit for DNA identification. Archaeologists began their assignment by looking for evidence of missing people known to be in their homes when Hamas attacked. Later, their mandate broadened to examining all burned houses and cars.
And that is what we deal with on a day-to-day basis, is dealing with past events, not modern events. But the transition is one that I think was, I don't want to say natural, but made a lot of sense, because, again, we're just about the only profession that can get down to this finite definition and help the forces that are working in order to identify these missing people.
Uziel says while the task is difficult, the archaeologists are thankful that they can help in this special way.
For me personally, there's a lot of mixed feelings. On the one hand, the things that you see there are unfathomable. You really can't understand. I mean, you see it on TV and photos and videos. It's not the same when you're there and you see the level of atrocities that were committed there. It's really difficult to take in. But on the other hand, to be able to contribute something to help these people, these families that have gone through such horror is in a way uplifting.
Uziel says they'll continue with this task for as long as it takes. Julie Stahl, CBN News, the IAA headquarters, Jerusalem.
Still ahead, a sneak preview of Season 4 of The Chosen through the eyes of its creator, Dallas Jenkins. You're watching CBN Newswatch. Stay with us. Welcome back to CBN Newswatch. The Chosen is the series following the life and ministry of Jesus Christ. The highly successful series is now preparing for the premiere of Season 4 in theaters. And series writer and director, as well as producer, Dallas Jenkins, gives us this preview.
It's time.
What wondrous love is this, oh my
Listen carefully
soul,
to my words.
Oh my soul.
There are those for whom this will set off a series of events.
What wondrous love is this?
So here we sit now, literally at the center of it all. Yes. You've got equal in front of you as you have behind you. How are you feeling?
I wish I could say I've had time to think about how I feel about it. There have been a couple times when I think back over the last 3.5 seasons of filming, which has taken about 5 years, and gone, so we're going to do that again. That's a little scary. But on the other hand, it's also encouraging because I've seen too much to believe that God's not going to continue to do what he's been doing.
My followers won't understand. The Son of Man must suffer many things. But you are the Son of God.
The solutions to problems over and over and over again. His batting average is 1,000. And so I have every reason to believe that that's going to continue. So if this train that I've been on of surrender and brokenness and God, more of you, less of me, can continue, I think that's up to me. He's not going to change. It's up to me to make sure that I don't change my posture either.
I know it's hard. Man makes it much harder.
To bear the dreadful curse.
When he leans on his own understanding.
How would you describe this fourth season ahead of its release? What can we look forward to? What are we going to see?
It's funny, season 3, one of the themes was, "Come to me, you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Mm-hmm. Something that we see in this season is Jesus weary and heavy laden. Mm-hmm. It's a new color that we explore that is from the Gospels. It's funny when you read the Gospels and you see it's easy to forget that Jesus told the disciples what was going to happen. He actually said, "I'm going to die. I'm going to be handed over to the authorities, and you're going to suffer too." And they were like, "Good point. Interesting. We'll talk about that later maybe. First of all, where do I fit in the group? And what's my ranking? And we were arguing about who's the greatest. What do you have to say about that?" And it broke his heart. He saw his closest friends and followers missing the point. The Pharisees, the religious leaders, were missing the point. Jerusalem, the holy city of his people, missing the point. He wept over it. We explore a lot of that in season 4. You see Jesus sadder this season than he has been in other seasons. That said, we've also got some great Bible stories that we're very excited to portray, that the crowd will be, the fans will be excited to see. There's a lot of joy moments, but there's also some sad moments. And this time you see a little bit of it from Jesus.
Did you imagine this magnitude of a production starting out?
Oh gosh, I didn't imagine any of this. I mean, I spoke with you when we were making the first 4 episodes. No one had seen The Chosen yet. If you would have asked me then, "So Dallas, how do you see this going? Where do you see this in the future?" I would have said, "I'd love to make 4 more episodes." The notion that we've now got this extraordinary set in Texas and an extraordinary set that we get to use in Utah, that we have the soundstage and all that, never would I have imagined it. Now, at the same time, I can't say it shocks me because God has proven himself capable of anything. I mean, obviously, God has done more than we can ask or imagine, and obviously that comes from Scripture. So no, I didn't imagine it, but I also don't want to slow it down by getting in the way of it or by taking too much time to think about how and why. It's like God's got something to say. He's doing something. I want to be part of it.
To bear the dreadful curse.
I dread what is to come. Storing in.
And for more uplifting entertainment, you can catch it on the CBN News Channel at our new time. That is this evening at 8 o'clock Eastern. You can watch Studio 5 there on the CBN News app or on YouTube. Stay with us. Your CBN Newswatch continues right after this break. Military families can face hard times in many levels, especially when loved ones are deployed. They could see some financial difficulty. This time of year, a Thanksgiving meal can actually be too much for the family budget. That's why CBN's Helping the Home Front is stepping up to lend a holiday helping hand.
If you see a man or woman in a military uniform, you might thank them for their service. CBN's Helping the Home Front takes that to the next level through its Thanksgiving food distribution.
Every slot is filled. We've not had this many come through. Don't know if some of the economy is affecting that. We know that at one point people were concerned that there might be a government shutdown. There's so many things that are involved in this, but we still have families that are just hungry.
Cars line up waiting for the holiday blessing. Navy wife Endorica Riley says with the economy, it's tough for military families these days.
People on the outside truly do not understand. People think that we can do the most, and we can't. We're struggling just like everybody else. It's a blessing. I'm truly thankful for everything that we're receiving.
Check out all these turkeys. Helping the Home Front is giving out 300 at Fort Eustis and another 300 turkeys at Langley Air Force Base. On top of that, each military family gets a holiday box filled with all kinds of sides.
It's great. It really helps out the family, right? Especially with food prices the way they are sometimes. So it really helps out. You don't know where you're going to move, right? And then sometimes in the areas you go to, it's more expensive than other areas.
First Lieutenant Taylor Albaugh oversaw military personnel loading the meals into the cars.
The soldiers, once they downloaded everything, they knew they were free to go, but they wanted to stay, and they wanted to help give out this food to these soldiers. So it's a really nice feeling to see that and the love that my soldiers have for helping others.
At Langley Air Force Base, Master Sergeant Miguel Alicea Candelario helps with the distribution.
Our job as an installation is to make sure our people are ready. You know, and that's not just the warfighter mentality of what they do in their job, but also in their personal lives, personal readiness and take care of their families. And this is the holiday time. What better time to do it?
Both Joshua Thayer and his wife, Michaela Hernandez, served their country, and now they're expecting a baby boy. They welcome the Thanksgiving helping hand.
It's one that's greatly appreciated, especially, you know, with what we're expecting. There's a lot of expenses, and not having to pay for a turkey or meal is it's a lot, and it's a relief. It really is.
I think it's a really great blessing in this itself because we don't have to worry about going and getting groceries as we're coming up on someone's due date. And so it's really nice and just a great way that I feel the community's serving the armed forces.
Serving a Thanksgiving feast to those who serve our country.
Time now for your Wednesday word, and today I want to leave you with the words of a song, very fitting as we do celebrate Thanksgiving. Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One. Give thanks because he's given Jesus Christ, his son. And here's the twist to make it even more personal. And now let the weak say I'm strong. Let the poor say I'm rich because of what the Lord has done for us. Give thanks. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN Newswatch. I want to remind you can always find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel. You can find them there at any time, as well as online. That address is cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. And, of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We certainly would love to hear from you. Make it a wonderful Wednesday. Have yourself a great Thanksgiving. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.